everybody. So we are starting with the next chapter, which is magnetic properties of materials, chapter number 35. So from here, I estimate that we require 6 classes to finish the syllabus. So in case you are interested in finishing off the syllabus before the last week, we can take 1 or 2 special classes and finish. You people just decide on that and get back to me. Okay, so this is magnetic properties of materials. This should immediately make you recall a chapter that you have studied in the past. That was chapter number 29, electrical properties of materials. So what did we study? Can you please mute? Please mute. Yeah, so what I'll now do is, next 10 minutes, I want to just spend on recalling what you studied in chapter number 29. If you do that, following this chapter will be very easy. So what is electrical property of material? So first thing we have studied there is that electrical property of a material is the response of a material to externally applied electric field. So that's where we said a material is a dielectric or a conductor, semiconductor, etc. Then the next thing is materials that do not have electrical dipoles, permanent electrical dipoles, they were called non-polar. Okay, and those that had permanent dipoles were called polar materials. Then the fourth point that we had studied there is that the dipoles will interact with an external field. We have seen that dipoles will interact with an external field and experience a torque which will orient the dipole parallel to the external field. And we have seen that when a material is not having, if the net dipole moment is 0, that is the dipoles are all in different direction, then the sum of the dipole moments for a given volume of the material turns out to be vectorially 0. And such a material is called magnetic material. Okay, and the minute you apply an electric field externally, then they start orienting, they experience a torque and start orienting. Then the sum of the net moments is not equal to 0. Then of course there is a class of materials called I have the minute you go to magnetism, you start typing magnetism everywhere. Electric. Okay. Now similarly, there is a class of materials called ferroelectrics. Ferroelectrics. So what are these ferroelectrics? In ferroelectrics, what happens is, even when you don't apply a dipole moment, the dipoles are all interacting with each other and there is a certain amount of alignment. Therefore, the net dipole moment is not equal to 0. When you apply an electric field, there is a lot of alignment. So it gives a very high value of dipole moment. Then what we had seen in that chapter is, if my applied electric field is E0, then this is what I just discussed. If I apply a uniform electric field E0, then the dipoles will polarize themselves. The material itself will get polarized. And then we have seen that you take a rectangular block of a material and put it in, I'm here talking about a dielectric, okay? Take it and put it in a uniform electric field. Then we have seen that the polarization will happen in such a way that there will be induced dipoles or orientation of dipoles happening in such a way that the net dipole moment inside, the net electric field inside is less than the applied electric field. Then of course we have seen an expression called E0 by E. E0 is the applied field and E is the net field. So this ratio is called the dielectric constant. And incidentally, this also happens to be epsilon naught by epsilon. So these are some things that we have studied with regard to dielectric. Now, we use the word dipole moment. So what's an electric dipole moment? Again, I'm just reminding you what you studied. A positive charge and a negative charge separated by a distance d. And dipole moment is defined as P equal to QD, where P is a vector, D is also a vector. And what is the direction of the P vector? P vector is from the negative charge to the positive charge. Okay, after we did this, we also saw that a dipole moment, if you take a dipole, electric dipole, take the perpendicular bisector on a point P on the perpendicular bisector, we found that there is an electric field because of the dipole. That means a dipole can be a source of an electric field. An electric dipole can be a source of an electric field. And look at this figure. The electric field was anti-parallel to the dipole moment P. Okay, and we got an expression for the electric field due to a dipole. So here is your expression. Then after that, what we did was, what if D becomes very small when compared to the distance of the point P? Okay, there we saw that the expression for the electric field will come down to minus P by 4 by epsilon naught x cube. Or we found that the electric field falls off as the cube of the distance. Okay, and we found that the electric field produced by a dipole is anti-parallel to the dipole moment. Then once we were done with the field of the dipole, let us again go back to external field. So first we take a uniform external field and put a dipole there. So what happens to this dipole? The net force experienced by this dipole is zero because there is a minus F and a plus F acting on the two charges. Therefore, the net force is zero. But there is a torque. And what is the torque going to do? The torque is going to align it parallel to the electric field. And the expression for the torque was tau is equal to P cross E. Then we also talked about potential energy of this dipole in a uniform electric field. The expression was P is equal to minus P dot E. Okay, and potential energy is a minimum. That means a system is stable when the potential energy is a minimum. You find that the potential energy is a minimum when P and E are parallel to each other. That is when it's aligned. Okay, and it's a maximum when it is anti-parallel. And after that, we saw how do you find the work done in turning, work done by the electric field in turning a dipole parallel to the electric field, or in general, turning it through an angle theta. So for that, we just had to use work done is equal to negative of change in potential energy. So in case some of you are wondering why I'm going so fast, it's because we studied all this. I'm only making you just recall what we have studied. The reason for the recall is you're going to see from the next minute that what we are going to study in this chapter is very, very similar to what we studied there. So if you draw a parallel between the two and then study, learning becomes easier. Any doubts till now? So what I discussed till now is not part of this chapter. It is chapter number 29. But I'm intentionally discussing all that here so that learning becomes easier. Okay. So now there we talked about electric dipole. Similarly, now we are coming to magnetism. We are talking of magnetic dipole. So what is a magnetic dipole? Magnetic dipole is simply a loop of current. A loop of current is a magnetic dipole. And I have introduced this term in this class, I think 2 classes before today. Okay, I'll tell you the context in a little while. So what can be the world's smallest dipole? The next question is, what can be the world's smallest dipole? You'll find that in an atom, you have electrons having spin orbital motion. Then you have a spin angular momentum and all you've studied, right? So spin angular motion. Then you have orbital angular motion. So even a spinning electron is a charge in motion. So there can be, you can treat it as a current. You can treat even a spinning electron as a current. So that is the world's smallest dipole. Then, once we have now discussed what is a dipole, we have to talk about what is a dipole moment. So dipole moment, there it was P equal to QD. Here it is mu equal to IA. Mu equal to IA. This mu is called the magnetic moment. I is the current in the loop. And what is A? A is the area of the loop. A is the area enclosed by the loop. Now look at this. Here is a picture. And you see here, A is a vector. A is a vector. B and A are parallel. Mu and A are parallel to each other. Dipole moment and area vector are parallel to each other. Just like P is equal to QD there. Okay. And how do you fit the area direction? Go for the right hand rule. Turn your right hand fingers in the direction of the current and look at the direction of the thumb. Thumb gives you the direction of the magnetic field, which is what you're seeing in this picture. So you can see here that mu and A vector are parallel to each other. Of course, here he is not showing the A vector. Let me draw that. Okay, so if I were to show my A vector will be this. So mu and A vector will be parallel to each other. Now let's come to the unit. There we have seen the unit is coulomb meter, QD, so coulomb meter. Here what is the unit? Let us see. I is ampere, and what is ampere? Ampere is, sorry, again made a mistake. Let me just correct this. So the unit is going to be ampere meter square. Ampere is the unit of current. So current into area. Area is meter square. Therefore, ampere meter square. And we have seen in the past also, like for example, in the case of the solenoid, we have seen that a loop can have many number of turns. Okay, so if there are capital N number of turns in your current loop, then the net dipole moment is the sum of the dipole moments of each turn. Okay, therefore it is N into I into pi r square. Here I am writing pi r square under the assumption that the area of cross section is circular. The area of the loop is circular. But then that need not always be the case. The loop can have any shape. The loop can have any shape. Like for example, okay. Like for example, this is also a loop. This is also a loop. Any shape it can have. For this also, you can talk about the area vector. You can talk about the mu vector. Okay, so it can have any shape. But then for a circular one with n number of turns, I've written it as n I into a, which is n into I into pi r square, where r is the radius. Which radius? Radius of the loop. Where r is the radius of the loop. Okay. Now, just as we have seen in chapter number 29, there we have seen that a dipole moment, an electric dipole moment can be a source of an electric field. Similarly here, we see that a magnetic dipole can be a source of magnetic field. Of course, here I don't have to really do anything because in the chapter Ampere's law, already we arrived at this expression. We already arrived at this expression for the magnetic field due to a loop of current. So let's use the same expression, mu naught I r square by 2, r square plus z square to the power of 3 by 2, where capital R is the radius, z is the axial distance from the center of the loop. Okay, but then now I want you to remember that we are not talking about simply a loop of current, we are talking about a dipole. So a dipole is one where R is going to be very, very small. A dipole is one where you can't take any loop of current and call it a magnetic dipole. Okay. A dipole, you call a loop of current as a magnetic dipole if the radius of the area is small. Okay, so which just means that Z is going to be much, much greater than R. So when you use that in this expression, what you get is this. What you get is this. You're getting that the magnetic field is parallel to the P vector. First thing you're getting is magnetic field is parallel to the P vector. Okay, how do you get that? We can see in a few minutes. Okay, why it is parallel to the P vector. So what we can do is you can just multiply and divide by pi. If you multiply and divide by pi, you get mu naught I into pi r square is your mu divided by 2 pi z cube. This is the expression. So you can see that the B vector and the mu vector are parallel to each other. This is different from what you studied in electric dipole. There, the electric field due to an electric dipole is anti-parallel to the dipole moment. Then, next thing you're seeing is that D is proportional to the cube of the distance. That's the same as for the case of electric field also. The electric field falls off as cube of distance. Here, magnetic field falls off as cube of distance. Okay, next. Whatever we have done in chapter number 29 only, we continue to do here. Okay, now you found, first you defined what is a magnetic dipole, then you talked about what is a dipole moment, then you talked about this dipole being a source of a magnetic field. We arrived at the expression and we saw that it is parallel to the mu vector, and it falls off as 1 by cube of the distance. Fine. Next, what we are going to do is, we are going to see that a dipole moment can be influenced by an externally applied magnetic field, So just like in chapter number 29, here what we do is, we will apply a uniform external magnetic field. And here I want you to go to chapter number 32. What did we see in chapter number 32? We have seen in chapter number 32 that F is equal to I into integral dl cross B, and that will be equal to 0 for closed loop. For a closed loop. This comes from chapter number 32. So straight away you can see that the net force experienced by a magnetic dipole in an external uniform magnetic field is 0. Okay. This is also similar to chapter number 29. Okay. So, yes, the net force is 0. But is there going to be a torque like in that chapter? That's the next thing you have to see. So here you're putting a dipole. Using your right hand rule, you're showing your mu vector. Okay, so this is your mu vector. This is your B vector, external field. So you're seeing that B and mu are forming an angle theta with respect to each other. So when this happens, what the magnetic field would do to the loop is, it will exert a torque on the loop and turn the loop so that mu becomes parallel to B. Same as in chapter number 29. Or you conclude that in a uniform magnetic field, a dipole experiences a torque tau is equal to mu cross B. Even the expression is same. Tau is equal to mu cross B, tending to rotate the dipole parallel to the field. What was the expression there? There it was tau equal to P cross E. Here it is tau equal to mu cross B. Okay. So from whatever we have studied till now, you have understood one thing. A dipole can produce its own magnetic field. A dipole can be affected by an external field. So from this, you can also come to a conclusion that if you have two dipoles in the vicinity of each other, they can influence each other. Two dipoles in the vicinity of each other can influence each other. That's not surprising at all. That should not be surprising. I hope you remember the two parallel currents. Each will set up a magnetic field in the location of the other, so they can affect each other. They can exert a force on each other. In this case, it's not going to be a force, it's going to be a torque. That's the only difference. And this interaction of dipoles happening within an atom. When I say within an atom, interactions of dipoles happening within an atom, what am I talking about? I am talking about dipole due to the spin of electrons, dipole due to the orbital motions of the various electrons, and I'm talking about the spin moment of the nucleons also. Like for example, proton is a charge, it can spin. Okay, so you have all these entities interacting with each other within an atom. So at the atomic level, for the entire atom, some atoms show a dipole moment. All these effects will, for all these individual components, can add up vectorially, and in some elements, they can give a net dipole moment. Okay, like to make you understand this, I'll just, for example, let me talk about a given atom. I'm just going to roughly use the most ancient model of your electron, of your atom. So let's say this is my nucleon, and let's say there is a spin, and then let's say that there are electrons in different orbitals which are spinning also. Okay, they may be spinning also, they may be also having an orbital motion. So each of them becomes a vector. Some vector in this direction, some in this direction, some in this direction, some maybe in this direction. So the vector sum of all these, for some atoms, they turn out to be 0. And for some atoms, they turn out to be non-zero. Okay, so the atom as an whole, if it is going to give you a dipole effect, then adjacent atom and this atom will talk to each other. There will be an interaction. So it is these interactions which decide whether a given material is paramagnetic, ferromagnetic, antiferromagnetic, etc. All the magnetic properties of materials come from this interaction. Okay. But one big difference between chapter number 29 and this is that electric field and electric force are conservative. Electric field and electric force are conservative, but magnetic force is non-conservative. Magnetic force is non-conservative. And you know that whenever a force is non-conservative, you cannot talk about the potential energy. Because after all, if a field is conservative, you are able to write it as minus del V. Okay. But you know straight away that magnetic field is not a conservative quantity. Therefore, you cannot write a magnetostatic potential energy. You cannot talk about a magnetostatic potential energy. But, listen, but, this but is very important, but it is possible to define the potential energy of a system of magnetic dipole in an external magnetic field. If I consider a system of magnetic dipole in an external magnetic field, I can define this as a system and talk about what is called in magnetic. I can talk about it as a conservative system. The reason why I'm able to do that is that you're going to see that the potential energy, you'll be able to talk about a potential. Normally we have seen potential energy should be a function of position or configuration. Here, interestingly, you find that there is a potential energy, and that potential energy is going to be a function of configuration. Configuration means the relative angle between the dipole and the magnetic field. So because of this reason, the interaction of a magnetic dipole in an external magnetic field is taken as a conservative system. Therefore, you can talk about a potential energy. Be very, very careful when you're talking about potential energy of the system. There is no potential energy or potential associated with magnetic force or magnetic field. But a system of magnetic dipole in an external magnetic field becomes a system which is conservative. Therefore, you can talk about potential energy. So, what is potential energy? The potential energy of a magnetic dipole in an external magnetic field is U is equal to minus mu B cos theta or minus mu dot B. Very, very similar to U equal to minus P dot E. Very, very similar. Okay. So now let us see, or in other words, you're seeing that this potential energy should always be a function of position or configuration. That's what you're getting here. Okay, so when the two of them are parallel to each other, potential energy becomes a minimum. That's the reason any system likes to be stable. So stability is achieved when the potential energy is at minimum. So the system will try to maintain stability by aligning the dipole parallel to the magnetic field. And what happens when it is anti-parallel? When it is anti-parallel, potential energy is a maximum. So this is also a equilibrium only, but it's an unstable equilibrium. Okay. Now, from this expression U equal to minus mu dot B, you are able to get another. See, these are all the questions that one could ask in a MCQ. Okay, multiple answer MCQs, for example. So you see here that U equal to minus mu dot B. So you can actually, this is a vector. So therefore you can see that this is Joule, this is Tesla. Okay, magnetic field is Tesla, then you have mu. Okay, so from this you get mu will have a unit Joule per Tesla. Till a few minutes back, we also said there is a unit ampere meter square. So typically how we arrive at multiple answer questions. Okay. Now, if you can talk about the potential energy, you can also talk about work done in changing the configuration. So it's just going to be the same like in chapter number 29. Work done is negative of change in potential energy. Okay. So a few minutes back, I talked about at the atomic level, all the individual entities can have dipole moments, I said. So how do you compare the value of the dipole moment of the various entities? You can see that the nucleus, the nuclear dipole moment, you don't talk about nucleon per se, you talk about the nuclear. Nuclear is going to have equal number of electrons, equal number of protons as electrons. So the nuclear as such will have a dipole moment, which is 10 to the power of 3 to 10 to the power of 6 times smaller than the atomic dipole moment. For the atom, if it's an atom which is going to give you a dipole moment, then the dipole moment of the nucleus will be much, much smaller. It will be about 10 to the power of 3 to 10 to the power of 6 times smaller than the atom's dipole moment. Okay, so from this study, this is a very, very important result in chemistry. Okay, using this, a lot of things are done in chemistry today. There is something called NMR. I don't know whether your chemistry teachers, I'm sure, must have mentioned this, though it is not there in the syllabus. Nuclear magnetic resonance. They must have mentioned. You use it for imaging, just like your MRI. Okay, you can actually do a lot of studies, understand a lot of things from NMR studies. Okay, so the nucleus also is so powerful. It gives a very, very small dipole moment, but even with that moment, you can actually do a lot of important things. And from measuring the nuclear dipole moment, scientists could come to a conclusion regarding the structure of the atom itself. Already, a lot of people had done studies, your gold foil experiment, do the foods, like that. So many experiments have been done. But then, just from the dipole moment also, you get a confirmatory result. So the first thing that you get from this result is that electrons cannot be inside the nucleus. Because the electrons, let's see, if this fellow, like let's say we are talking about a family. Let's say the total earning of a family per month is 5 lakhs. Okay, there is a father, there is a mother working, and then there is a son working. The son just joined a job. Let's say his salary is less. The father is already a big executive in a big company. Okay, so if the total salary of that house is 5 lakhs, okay, then you say that the youngest generation is earning 50,000. Youngest generation is earning 50,000. Then you definitely know that the father is not the youngest generation, because that 50,000 is very small when compared to the 5 lakhs that the entire unit is earning. So like that, by making a comparison of the dipole moments, people could conclude that electron is certainly not a part of the nucleus. Okay, that's the first thing. Next thing, magnetic effects. This is what I just told you. Magnetic effects are determined by the atomic magnetism rather than the nuclear magnetism. This effect is very weak. So the entire atom's magnetic moment interacting with the neighboring atom is what decides the magnetic effect of a given material. And just now we also saw one expression, tau is equal to mu cross B. Tau is equal to mu cross B. If you have not seen it, this is what it is. Okay, tau equal to mu cross B. Right, we have already, you have written tau is equal to mu cross B. Okay, so tau is equal to mu cross B. So if mu is 10 to the power of 3 to 10 to the power of 6 times smaller than that of the atom, that also means that the torque required to align it is also small, is also correspondingly small. So you can see the third point. It says that the torque required to align nuclear dipoles requires magnetic fields about The torque required to align nuclear moments about 10 to the power lower. Lower than necessary to align atomic dipoles. Okay, just check this one, sir. The same magnetic field you're having. So you're having mu is smaller, therefore it requires a smaller magnetic field. Yeah. So let's just try one problem. You have a rectangular You have a rectangular coil. The length of the coil is 2.1 centimeter. Please remember your dipoles in real life are not so big. This is just a problem. The length is 2.1 centimeter. The width is 1.25 centimeter. And there are 250 turns. So N is equal to 250. What is the dipole moment of the coil? What is the dipole moment of the coil? And what is the current in the coil? The current in the coil is given as I equal to 85 microamps. So what do you do here? Mu is equal to NIA. NIA, which is N into I into LW, because it's a rectangle. Okay, so when you do that, you find that the magnetic dipole moment turns out to be 5.36 into 10 to the power of minus 6 joule per Tesla. Very, very small. Okay, the next part of the question is, how much work would be done by an external agent to rotate the coil through 180 degrees? To rotate the coil through 180 degrees. Okay, so let's say that W equal to, we have just seen, W equal to minus delta U, which is, sorry, plus delta U. Therefore, this is UF minus UI. Okay, so let's say this is going to be UF. W, sorry, 1 second. That's going to be minus mu B cos 180. This is final, because after all U is equal to minus mu dot B. Okay, then you have a minus of, again, minus mu B cos 0. Okay, an external agent. How did I come to the conclusion that initially it was 0 and finally it is 180? That is from parallel to anti-parallel. How did I come to that conclusion? I came to the conclusion from one word in the problem. That one word is, what is the work done by an external agent? Magnetic field, you don't have to do anything. Magnetic field will align them parallel. Okay, you don't have to do anything. So from a parallel to make it anti-parallel, an external agent has to do work. So that's the reason why we could conclude that it is initially parallel and then became anti-parallel because an external agent did work on the system. And incidentally, the author says that the answer you get is 9.1 microjoule. Okay, and this is the equivalent of the work needed to lift an aspirin tablet through a height of 3 mm. So that's the kind of work that an external agent has to do on the system to turn the dipole from parallel to anti-parallel. Next, let us see. We are now going to make a comparison. We are talking of magnetism of a dipole, etc. So why are we talking of magnetism? So first what we'll do here is, we take an electric dipole. It's got nothing to do with this chapter, only for a comparison. We'll take an electric dipole, look at its electric field. So this is the first picture. It's talking about the this is the first picture. So here is a minus charge and a plus charge, and you can see how the electric field is going from the positive charge to the negative charge. So this is the first picture, not a new picture. This you have already seen in chapter number 26. Okay, now let's 26, 27 also you've seen. 28, no. Okay, now what's the next one? Next one here, let us look at this fellow. A bar magnet. For a bar magnet, you know how the magnetic field lines will look. It will be closed loops emerging from the north and then closing into the south. Okay. Now let us look at the dipole for a dipole, magnetic dipole. You find that these two are identical. These two are identical. So what you can now conclude is that every dipole, every magnetic dipole behaves like a tiny magnet. Every magnetic dipole behaves like a tiny magnet. So now it's easy to understand the magnetic effect of material. Otherwise, you wonder from where is magnetism coming? Magnetism is coming because a tiny loop of current or a magnetic dipole behaves exactly like a tiny bar magnet. Okay? Okay, so till now we have seen how the magnetic dipole experiences a torque in a uniform magnetic field. The net force is zero, we have seen. So now for a change, what we are going to do is we are going to look at non-uniform magnetic field. Non-uniform magnetic field. What happens to a dipole in a non-uniform magnetic field? So the first thing you're going to do is we are going to look at permanent dipoles. That is materials which behave like permanent dipoles. You're going to study them using this particular example. So here you have two current loops. Please, for heaven's sake, forget these two. Forget these two. Only look at the loop. Only look at the loop of current. This is loop 1. This is loop 2. Loop 1 is carrying a current I1. Loop 2 is carrying a current I2. There are two different currents, I1 and I2. And they are magnetic dipoles. They are dipoles. So what happens is, first thing is, these two fellows will interact with each other and make their dipoles parallel to each other. They will make their dipoles parallel to each other. Why does that happen? That's because of the torque. Tau is equal to mu cross B. Because of that, one loop sets up a magnetic field where the other loop is there. So that loop experiences a torque. Therefore, both of them will align themselves along a common axis. They will align themselves along a common axis and let this axis be the z-axis. Now, let us see what happens next. So we will treat loop 1. We will treat loop 1 as source of magnetic field. We'll treat loop 1 as a source of magnetic field. So how will the magnetic field look for this loop 1? So loop 1 behaves like a tiny bar magnet. Loop 1 behaves like a tiny bar magnet. So that's why this magnet picture is put there. It behaves like a tiny bar magnet with the north pole up. Why north pole up? That comes from the right hand rule. Now let us draw the magnetic field lines. The magnetic field lines are going to be like this. I'm only drawing part of it. The magnetic field lines are going to be like this. Just drawing only part of it. Okay, I'm not drawing the entire thing. So you can see that the magnetic field is larger near the poles. Larger, my picture is not very good. Yeah, it's okay. I can still do that because it's a loop only after all. Okay, so what happens is you can see that this is a non-uniform magnetic field. The magnetic field set up by the loop 1 is a non-uniform magnetic field. Near the loop 1, the magnetic field is large, the lines are closer, and as you go away, it's like a flower blooming, the magnetic field lines are becoming far from each other, therefore less magnetic field. Okay. Now, you look at, now what we'll do is I'll just remove all these clumsy things so that things will look clearer. Okay, now what we'll do is, let us simply take two parts, just two elements let us take. An element of length ds and a diametrically opposite element, current element ds. Okay, now if you look at what is the magnetic field, I just drew and show you know the magnetic field. So the magnetic field here, because of the loop 1 is B1. Similarly, at this end, the magnetic field is going to be B1. Okay, now what happens is you have to remember that dF, that is a force acting on this element, will be I ds cross B1. This comes from one of the previous chapters. So what you see here is, from the right hand rule, ds and B1 will be perpendicular to dF direction. So your dF direction is going to be this. Similarly here also, dF is going to be this, perpendicular to B1 and ds direction. You have to think of this entire thing three-dimensionally. Now you see you have two forces df here and here, diametrically opposite elements. You have two forces which are looking like this. So what should be the sum of these two? The sum of these two will be a net force like this. By now you should be familiar with these kind of pictures. If I have a df like this, and if I have a df like this, the sum will be a vector in this direction. Okay, so that's what will happen here. You find that the force on these two elements will be I2 ds cross B. Why do I say I2? Because I2 is the current of the second loop and the net force is downward. So like this, if you take every element, I take an element here, diametrically opposite element here. I take an element here, diametrically opposite element here. So if I do this for the entire loop 2, I find that there is going to be a net force looking down, a net force looking down. Or in other words, loop 2 is getting attracted to loop 1. Loop 2 is getting attracted to loop 1. Okay, so this is actually, whatever we have done here is an explanation for ferromagnetism. Ferromagnets get attracted to magnetic field. They get attracted to magnetic field. So the first loop behaves like a magnet. Second loop is your material, which is getting attracted to the loop 1. Okay. So we can also explain this using potential energy concept. You see here, the potential energy, let me quickly read this. The potential energy of loop 2 in the magnetic field B1 is U equal to minus mu2 dot B1. B1 is the external field and B1 is the external field and mu2 is the moment of the second loop. Okay, so force is minus du by dz, you know. So if I take this and then do a differentiation with respect to z, it is mu2 dB1 by dz. If I look at how magnetic field is changing along the z direction, I find that magnetic field decreases as you move away from the loop 1. So you can say that dB1 by dz is negative. As z increases, d1 value decreases. You're moving away from loop 1. But what about mu2? Mu2, if you see, mu2 direction is positive. Mu2 direction is positive. Okay, so you have a product of a positive number and a negative number, which is negative. And you know that whenever a force is negative, it is an attractive force. So that's how we can use the concept of potential energy and then explain this attractive force. Even otherwise from the previous one, just from the, okay, 1 second, let me just finish up this. Now you look at this. You can also explain this attraction by another way. So now look at this. This current loop behaves like a tiny magnet with its north pole up. Similarly, because the current is parallel, I1 and I2 are parallel, this fellow also behaves like a tiny bar magnet with the north pole up. So now look at this. The south pole is closer to this north pole. Therefore, there is a net attraction. So this is the way you can explain ferromagnetic interactions, or even paramagnetic for that matter. Any material which is going to, in paramagnetic also, first when you apply the magnetic field, there is an alignment and then attraction. So whatever we have done till now can be summed up as one sentence. What is it? In a non-uniform external magnetic field, permanent dipoles are rotated into alignment with the field. So that's the first thing that happens. And then get attracted to the source of the field. So you look here, B1 is the field. What is the source of the field? Loop 1. So loop 2, which is the permanent dipole in this magnetic field, gets attracted to the source of the magnetic field. The source of the magnetic field is loop 1. Okay, so this is a conclusion that you can make, and using this concept you can explain ferromagnetism and paramagnetism. Now let's go to induced dipoles. So you need to talk about certain materials which are diamagnetic. So here this is going to explain diamagnetism to you. What are diamagnets? Diamagnets, at least this much all of you remember, they repel. They get repelled by magnets. If you apply a magnetic field, they move away from the magnetic field. So those materials are not dipoles. At the atomic level, if you look at them, they won't have a net dipole moment. So you're like, madam, they also have electrons, they also have nucleus, then how come there is no dipole? There what happens is the electron orbitals, the spin and everything will be in such a way, you know, the spin up, spin down and all that. So obviously there will be a cancellation with even number of electrons. And then the orbital orientation and everything will be in such a way that, you know, finally the vectors of the individual contributions will all be in different directions and the sum will be zero. The sum will be zero. So if I take an atom, like for example, bismuth, if I take a bismuth atom, it is diamagnetic. It is diamagnetic. It will be repelled by a magnet. By itself, it doesn't have a dipole moment. Then why does it get repelled is the question that we'll try to understand. So to make you understand that, here what the author does is, instead of B1, he had a B1 and all that. No, instead of that, he is this time going to use a bar magnet itself to produce the magnetic field. Okay. And here, instead of one loop, we are going to have two closed loops. We are going to have two closed loops carrying equal and opposite currents. Carrying equal and opposite currents. Look at this. This fellow has got a current I in this direction. The other guy has got a current in the opposite direction. So what will be the dipole? One fellow will have a dipole in this direction. The other will have an equal dipole in the opposite direction. Therefore, the net dipole initially will be zero. This is initially. This is what I said. Those kind of these metals, these elements, you know, what happens is at the atomic level, each entity will have its own dipole moment, but then they vectorially add up and give zero. For that, he's trying to show how that happens. And now what happens is, you are putting it in this non-uniform magnetic field. So what happens is, if you have a bar magnet and move the bar magnet with a velocity v towards these loops. If you move this bar magnet with a velocity v towards these loops, what is happening to the flux through the loops? The flux through the loops is increasing. The flux through the loops, magnetic flux through the loops is increasing. So according to Faraday's and Lenz's law, what happens is, this is now going to set up an induced current. The two loops will quickly set up an induced current in this direction. In this direction, both of them will induce a current to oppose that changing flux. To oppose that changing flux. But Faraday's law you apply and see for yourself what is happening. Okay. So the induced current will be in the same direction now for both of them. Okay. So now try to see what is going to be the net dipole. What is going to be the net dipole? You will find that there is a current in this direction, a current in this direction. Both of them add up and you're going to have a net dipole in this direction. Dipole momentum in this, a moment in this direction. And this is an induced dipole. Initially, the net dipole moment was zero, but now you induced it by changing the magnetic flux. And the direction comes from Lenz's law. So now let us see what happens. You look at this. Mu in this direction is the equivalent of saying that this behaves like a tiny bar magnet with the north down and south here. Whereas your source had north here and south here. So obviously there is going to be a repulsion. It's a repulsive force. So this is how we explain diamagnetism using the concept of induced dipoles. So that's why at the atomic level, they don't have, left to themselves, they don't have any magnetism. Okay, they'll be sitting there. The net dipole moment is zero. But the moment you bring a magnet towards them, you put them in a magnetic field, then there is a magnetic field set up because of induced current in a direction opposite. So they repel. Of course, using potential energy, he's just discussing the same thing. I will just sum up this by writing one sentence. In a non-uniform magnetic field, induced dipoles are repelled from the source of the magnetic field. They go from a region where the magnetic field is larger to a region where the magnetic field is smaller. That means they move away from the source. Okay, with this background, in the next class, we'll go to actually now instead of talking at the atomic level and all, we'll talk about materials and their properties. Okay, winding up the class now. Okay, I'm stopping the presentation. Stop recording.